Hi, I want to show you what's going on in the market because there are some scary headlines out there right now. So, what I want to do is we're just going to do a market update for the Coachella Valley. We're going to start with some of the headlines that you might be seeing, and then we're going to look at what's actually happening here. And we're going to do this in a relatively short amount of time. So trust me, this is not going to be a super long video. Of course, you can already see how long it is. So let's start by sharing my screen real quick here. And we're going to start with this here. Okay, so right now what we're looking at is we are looking at the Coachella Valley housing monthly summary from June. Okay, so I have some numbers from July as well, but let's look at June. So right now you might have seen this Business Insider headline that here's the latest sign that the US housing market has frozen over. Now, don't get me wrong, the market has been it's been tough. There's not been a lot of home sales, but that's been going on for the last couple of years since the end of 2022 when the interest rates went up. So is it true that last year was the worst year on record since the 90s for number of home sales? It is true. It's true. And this year might actually be worse. Okay, overall for the US. Now, Coachella Valley is sort of beating the odds a little bit, but let's look at, there's a few reasons why. Okay, so this article can go over some of those reasons. From what I'm seeing is there's still sort of a locked in scenario, which is going to start easing up just because of the fact that people have to buy and sell over the years. It's like at one point somebody might be in a very low interest rate. So that's what the locked in effect is, right? So you have a house, you have a 3.25% interest rate, and you're probably not going to give that up for a 6.8% interest rate unless you have to. Okay, well, some people have had to. There have been new buyers who've come into the market. These rates they're not fun, but they're not, I mean, rates have been higher in the past, right? So in the 90s, actually, the rates were higher. They were, when I first started in 1997, they were consistently 8. They were always seemed like 8%, 9 for a jumbo. That was kind of the number. My very first mortgage in 1997 was or I'm sorry, 99. I got a 7.5 FHA. So that was pretty cool. But anyway, so right now, if you have a low interest rate, you're probably not going to want to move. But over the years, that's going to continue to happen. So we were seeing the rates go from the threes up into the fours in early 2022. And then they have been going up ever since, as I'm sure we all know, unless you just have not been paying attention at all to housing, in which point maybe you've just been living your life and it's probably been lovely if you don't have to pay attention to these rates every day like we do. But anyway, so the frozen part is partly that, partly taking buyers who don't own a home and saying, gosh, well, the prices have gone up so much over the last couple of years. This is unaffordable for me at this interest rate. Maybe if it was in the fives or even in the lower sixes, it would be a little bit more affordable, but they're hanging in there too. There's also a certain segment of the population who keeps thinking, and I would argue, of course, I do not have a crystal ball, but I do have experience and research behind me. But since I've been doing this for 26 years, but if you think that the housing market's going to crash because let's face it, a lot of us, what we remember as the last recession was the market crash of 2008. But did you know that since the Great Depression, literally since the Great Depression in the 30s, home prices had not gone down maybe 1%, maybe they were flat. I think in 1995, I think that was the year where it just kind of went down just a little bit, like maybe 1.5% or something. They have not gone down year over year nationally for 100 years almost until 2008, less than 100 years. But that's a really long stretch, right? So usually a recession means the home prices, it doesn't really affect the home prices. 2008 was a mortgage and housing uh, recession, right? I mean, that's what caused it. It was a mortgage and housing caused recession. It was caused from fraud in the market. There was a lot of different things. Go watch The Big Short. It's a great movie if you want to know more about it. I actually had a hard time watching that movie for a while because it gave me like PTSD. Like, being a realtor in those years was like, it was very tough to get through. This is not like that. But anyway, it's still been a tough market though, because of the number of home sales has gone down dramatically because a lot of people are they're locked in, they just really can't afford it right now. But if interest rates came down a little bit, they could and would. Or people who are waiting for something that is really, I mean, quite frankly, it's not going to happen. It's not going to crash. It's just not. And I've heard people talk about that, and the doom scrollers on social media who want to just get the clickbait, they're talking about that. It's not going to happen. And there's a couple of reasons why. If it was going to happen, we would actually not see, for instance, here's one reason why it's not going to happen. I think this will make sense for a lot of people. One of the reasons for the housing crash in 2000 and it was really 2009, it was started in 2008, was because a lot of people couldn't sell their home, right? So if you have there was a lot of 80-20 loans, meaning 80% loan and a 20% loan, meaning the person who bought the house got 100% financing. They didn't have a dollar of their own money invested for the most part, and maybe they paid some closing costs. A lot of times they didn't even do that. So it's 100% financing. So when the market went down a little bit, they couldn't afford to sell. They had no equity. They had no way to sell. So they were underwater, which is called a short sale. Okay, so a short sale means that you owe more than what the home is worth. Now, that's one thing if you are in that situation, and sometimes that can still happen, but right now, generally speaking, there's a lot of equity. So here's why the home prices are not going to crash, because anyone who's in a financial hardship right now can likely sell their home and come out with thousands of dollars, unless they bought like 2 years ago. If they have owned their home for any length of time, and I'm talking 4 years or more, chances are they can sell their home and they are probably going to make thousands of dollars, and then they can go rent or whatever the case may be for somebody who might be in some financial trouble. So there's no reason for them to reduce the price of their house. And they, maybe just a little bit, just make sure it gets sold because they're on a time crunch. There's no reason. So then here's the other thing. I believe the last count was 40%, 40% of the homes that are out there right now do not even have a mortgage. They're owned free and clear. They can sell them or not, right? So they don't have to sell. We had a lot of people in a position where they own their home. Oh, and the other thing about the 2008 crisis was that a lot of people were in adjustable rate mortgages. So maybe they could have afforded the first payment that they got, but then once the mortgage rate adjusted up, once the rates went up, they couldn't afford it anymore. Then they had to sell, much like a lot of people had no equity. And now we are back in that issue. So some of the banking practices too had changed back in 2010. If you recall, the Dodd-Frank Act, regardless of what you may think of it, one of the things it did was to make the home loans that you have been seeing for the last 15 years more solid. So you're not going to see as many people that were put into a home loan with what we used to call ninja loans. I didn't call them that, or at least I knew what they were. They were no income, no job, right? Ninja. So they just, how much do you make? They just wrote it down on a piece of paper. What do you do for a living? I am a clown. I'm a birthday clown. Oh, you're an entertainer. I mean, seriously, these loans were like not worth the paper they were written on, right? So that's why a lot of this crumbled. You can't do that anymore. You haven't been able to do that for about 15 years, which means, again, for the last 15 years, which is half of a normal home loan of 30 years, people are in solid loans again. Okay, so I digress. So now let's go back to where we are today. Where we are today is, yes, would I agree it's a frozen market? Yes, it is. There's a lot of stuff not moving, right? There's just a little bit of this, where people want to wait and see what's going on, or they just want to wait for those rates to come down, what have you. But let's take that information and let's go to the higher picture overall of what is actually happening in the U.S. housing market. So let's go to Redfin. They have a nice little chart on their website. And so right now, home prices nationwide were up basically 1%. It's not a lot. It's not down, is it? Every year you're waiting, it's going, right? It's going up. Still, to this day in a frozen housing market, the price still went up. And that happened last year too. Now, we are shaping up again to have even a lower home count. Again, when we say the housing market's the worst it's been in 30 years, it's because of the number of homes sold. It's been hovering around 4 million, whereas the height of the market was more like a 6 million, and you would think of more of an average market as closer to a 5, give or take. That's been for the last several years. So let's look at this right now. So that's what's bad about the market. So if you're a seller and you're sitting there and you're like, you know that it's frozen because you know that you might have to maybe make the price again. It's still probably gone up since the price it was a year ago. Potentially, depending on where you are, every pocket's going to be a little bit different. There's down markets, there's up markets. We here are pretty neutral. We are right in line with the U.S. housing market, actually, in this sense. So, according to this, for the U.S. single family homes, it has gone up 1.5% year over year. That's what it's done. I mean, that's about right. So now let me show you guys what we did. So this is for June. Okay, so I've got numbers again for July, but let's look at, oh, that's the condo. I want to show the single family. Okay, let's look at single family homes in the Coachella Valley. Blah. And we've got, if you look at the days on market, they're up a little bit. They're up. So this is where a headline would be. Days on market is up 18%, but it's 71 days, right? 71 days versus the days on market a year ago, which were 60. So it's 11 more days. It's not this crazy number, right? It's not a headline number. That's kind of a boring number, actually. We're in, relatively speaking, a balanced market. And quite frankly, the couple of years ago that we were dealing with a 2021 and a 2022 market, those were unhealthy markets. And you've probably, if you watch anything I've done before, you've heard me talk about that. So listings under contract were 615 in June, and this is up 45% from 423 in June of 2024. What does that mean? There is there's actually a little bit under 200 more homes under contract in the Coachella Valley this year than last year. So that's better, right? I mean, that's a good thing, generally speaking. New listings are down a little bit. Now, some of that for Coachella Valley could be our market can be a little bit different from others, whereas we have a lot of people who come into the valley in the best months of the year. So they're coming between like November and March, right? So there's not as many people here this time of year, and therefore not as many homes on the market. They're probably waiting. January tends to be our biggest month for putting homes on the market in this area, which is a little bit different than a lot of other areas. So anyway, so something to keep in mind. Our median home price again has gone up $10,000. It's 1.5% change from this year to last year. It was $660 on average last year. It is $670 on average this year. Okay, so now, as promised, let's go to what I pulled up here. So this is everything, and actually this is for the for 2025. So this is the Coachella Valley. We've got Desert Hot Springs, we've got Palm Springs, Bermuda Dunes, Coachella, Indio, La Quinta, Palm Desert, etc. So Cathedral City. So this right here is the Coachella Valley. Now, I pulled numbers for last year. So these are just the closed numbers because that's obviously going to be what I'm going to be looking at. And then for the numbers for this year, I went back 30 days. So this is the same 30-day time frame last year. So July 5th through August 5th. Okay. And then I went to this year, but I did the actives and the pending under contracts. And so that one is also from July 5th to August 5th, but for this year. So how does that come out? Okay, well, let's look at this. So here's my numbers, my little spreadsheet I like to keep here. So this is single family homes only. And there's a reason why this even breaks it up into condos. You can see condos versus single family, and that's what this one is. And I'm just doing the single family for now for an overall market analysis. Now, keep in mind too that this is a general Coachella Valley, just like it was a general U.S. market overview. So there's going to be some neighborhoods that are going to be different. If you want any numbers for your condo, for your single family home, for your even just neighborhood, let me know. I am always happy to provide a market analysis for you at any point in time. You don't have to be thinking, oh, I'm going to sell anytime soon. And just tell me, hey, I just want to know what my asset is worth right now. And I will do it for you. I'm actually very, I know people are like, well, I don't want to bother her because we're not going to sell. We just want to know the numbers. Bother me. Let me know what you want. I will be more than happy to provide this for you. And I can give you a more general for just your house. I can give you a little bit more specific for just your house, or I can really get down into the nitty gritty for your house and you just let me know what you want. The nitty gritty means I'm visiting your neighbors who have sold or, sorry, are on the market or maybe under contract if I can get in. I go look at everything that's exactly like yours. And then we really narrow, like if we were going to list tomorrow, what number would I think would be your best number? And that would be your nitty gritty, but I can definitely give you a middle of the road, or I can give you a more general one just for you. Super easy. Like for the more general one, I can guarantee you I'll be closer than Zillow. I actually love Zillow. I think it's a great website. I'm not trying to down on Zillow, but the fact is that a human brain thinking about things is going to beat an algorithm all day long, no matter how good it is, right? So, and Zillow even says they are plus or minus, like I think the number's like 10% or something like that. So don't quote me on that. Something to that effect. And I mean, that's fair. It's an algorithm. They don't know what's inside your house, right? It's just a computer guessing. So anyway, so let's look at this today, this number. So right now on the market, there are 1,981, almost looks like I put a date there, right? It's 1,981 homes that are active and coming soon. There are 552 active under contract and pending. So if you see those two statuses, all they really mean, the difference is, and they're not always even put in correctly anyway, but the basic difference is active under contract means they're still going through inspections, loan contingencies, excuse me, things like that. Better get a little water so I can keep going here. And they're also, excuse me, and then once it goes to pending, it typically means that those contingencies are removed and they're moving forward. But again, those statuses aren't always updated. But generally speaking, those two mean that they are under contract, getting ready to close, and there's 552. Now, let's talk about this little number in yellow here, because that is months of inventory, MOI, months of inventory, meaning how many months would it take if you sold this many homes, right? What we currently have pending and under contract at the current rate of active homes, right? So it's just a simple division. So it would take a little over 3 months to sell all of the inventory if nothing new came on. Okay. So then closed 30 days, 414. That I think the months of inventory number is way more accurate when you're looking at the pending sales. But for the last 30 days, 414 homes have closed sale. And that's another number that's been floating around too, is like how many homes under contract have backed out, right? And it's interesting because if you look at this number, 552 versus 414, there's a good chance that a handful of these are also going to back out. So that number then becomes almost 5 months of inventory. But I also wanted to show you here the average price per square foot. So what were we just looking at for overall for Coachella Valley and for the country at large? About a 1% gain year over year. That's exactly what I have here. Our average price per square foot on August 5th of 2024 was $374.51. Our average is $378.37 now. It went up about 1%, meaning that same home that you bought for $749 last year to this year is worth about $756. It's not a huge amount, but it's not less. And again, people who are waiting for this big crash, I would tell you, if we just had the worst number of homes sold in 30 years this last year, and we still went up even 1%. And again, that's technically down if you're factoring inflation. But at the end of the day, we didn't go down. That's got to tell you something. It means that if you really want to buy, it's really, I mean, again, there's no crystal ball and nobody can say for sure what's going to happen, but there is no indication that there's any sort of major crash coming. There's nothing in the numbers. There's people speculating. Honestly, I think sometimes they're speculating just for clickbait. But quite frankly, there's just no reason to think and that you're going to buy something that's going to go down right away. And let's face it, at the end of the day, you're not buying a home, you're buying a home to live in it. Most people live in their homes 7 to 10 years. It actually used to be closer to 7. It is now closer to 10, probably because of those low mortgage rates that people have had a little bit longer. But if you are going to live in your home for 7 years or more, don't worry about what's going to happen between now and next year. Because quite frankly, even in 2009 and 10, even by 10, actually things were getting better because we had that first time home buyer tax credit. But even to 2009, when things were pretty tough, I was still selling homes for people who had lived in them for 10 or 20 years and didn't take out a home equity line of credit and just max everything out, who were making still plenty of money. It would have been nice if they would have waited a few more years if they could, not the end of the world, but quite frankly, they made money. So that's something to consider. It's not a stock purchase. It's not just some faceless thing. Like, this is your home. This is where you live. This is where your family is, where you and your dog are, whatever the case may be, right? Even you and a roommate, you're building some equity. You have a roof over your head. You need a roof over your head regardless. Why not have it be something that's actually going to make you money over the amount of time that you're going to live there? Now, if you are going to move to an area and you don't think you're going to live in this area, you're not sure if you're going to live there for more than maybe a couple of years, I would generally never recommend that you buy something if that's going to be the case. And because I'm telling you what I would do and what I wouldn't do. I would not go buy a house if I knew I was going to move in 2 years. It's just too risky. There's just no way to know, you know? Year over year is tough. People who flip and people who do those kinds of things, it's quite the gamble because you really don't know what's going to happen in the market. You just don't. I mean, people were very convinced that they're buying homes in 2022 and they're going to flip it in 2023. Not as much. So anyway, just something to keep in mind. Now, I'm going to move you over to one more thing. Where did I put that? Yep, here it is. Okay. So I just wanted to hit the months of inventory and what it means, basically. So if you're looking at the months of inventory, and we talked about the fact that we are at, let's go back here again real quick. So we're at 3.59 right now. All right. So that number is going to land. It's going to land in between here. So if you saw when we were looking at this here, it is a balanced market. That's really what they're looking at, right? So if you look at in between here, it's just barely tiptoeing into a neutral market. Now, does that mean that you can just put your house on the market and it's just going to fly off the shelf? Actually, that's exactly the opposite. But you don't have to worry about being in a buyer's market either. If you're a buyer, what you don't have to worry about right now is necessarily competing against multiple offers, having to up your offer price by tens of thousands of dollars, and in some cases more. Or let's say you're getting a VA or an FHA loan, right? In 2021 and 2022, those were tough. I mean, honestly, people with cash were just killing you, or people with 30% down, or whatever the case may be. There, you just didn't have a chance to buy something. And right now, all day long, FHAV, let's go get you something, because even actually, I think those rates are a little bit better right now. And today, when I'm recording this on August 5th, 2025, the rates just hit the lowest that they've been this whole year. And I think it was 6.5, if I remember correctly. I have to look at it again. But they're the lowest that they've been in a year. And there is speculation that if they were even to get even closer to 6, you're going to see this line here. It's going to tip potentially back over into more of a seller direction. Why? Because the market is frozen. So it's coming just full circle. The market is frozen, yes, but that doesn't mean that we have like all this extra inventory we have to get rid of. No, no, no. We have a normal amount of inventory, maybe just an abnormal amount of buyers, but the inventory also isn't piling up. So let me go back to what I was talking about in the first place. If the inventory is piling up, then you're probably going to be looking at more of a buyer's market. But why isn't it piling up? Let's go back to that interest rate again, because so many people are sitting in their homes with no loan at all, plenty of equity, so they don't have a real urgency. They can make their payment. They didn't have an adjustable rate mortgage, and they have a low mortgage. And unless they really have to move, there's not a big chance that they're going to be doing that, right? They're not just moving up because they want a little bit more space. Although that pressure is going to start to get more and more. It's like, okay, well, we have a 3.75% interest rate, and if it's almost 7, well, that's double, right? But if it's closer to 6, or I mean, I'd love to see it in the 5s again. I don't know if it's going to happen, but let's just say it was right at 6%. That's a little bit more palatable, right? Maybe you find a builder who's offering a lower interest rate incentive just to buy one of their homes, and that pressure is going to start to build up and be like, well, listen, we've got 3 kids and 2 bedrooms, and we really need to move up, right? This is only tolerable for so long. So a little bit of that pressure will come into play, and this will tend to thaw a bit when that happens. But for now, just know that as far as the Coachella Valley is concerned, we've actually seen prices go up. We have seen the numbers be very balanced right now. And even though the days on market have gone up a little bit, it's been pretty, it's 11 more days. There was the days were in the hundreds back in, like, say, a 2013 or something like that. So, but more, and I think when you go back and look at more neutral markets over the years, you were looking at, depending on the price point, you were looking at 60, 90, 120 days being very normal on the market. Listen, it's going to be, that's why people took 6-month listing agreements all the time, because it's going to take a few months to get you sold, right? But right now, it's still not even really taking 2. So something to keep in mind. But anyway, there's your market update for nation, and then zooming in on our Coachella Valley, on our beautiful desert right now. Even though it's August, it's really just barely hitting really hot. We've had some pretty good streak this summer. I was at the dog park the other day, and on a really lovely evening, it was not that hot. We just went around 7:30. Oh, it was really beautiful. So if you want to live in the Coachella Valley too, or if you live in the Coachella Valley, then you know what I'm talking about. But if you want to live here and you just are thinking like, well, I'm going to wait for the prices to come down, I just wouldn't do that. I think we're probably not going to see much different than this for some time. You might as well buy now, even if it's only a 1% difference. Who knows? That's my thoughts. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this market analysis. Learn something new, share it with your friends. And if you want something, again, that's really specific to your house, feel free to send me a message and let me know what your address is and your email, and I can put that all together for you. I can make it more general. I can get a little bit more specific for you, and I can get really specific for you if I'd have to come see your house in order to do that. So if you do want that, that would be the most accurate, would be me obviously coming to see your house. But in the meantime, I'm happy to do a general one if you just want to get a feel for what your biggest asset is worth these days. So anyway, have a great day. Thanks so much for watching.